Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Vulnerable. And I think this is the third or fourth episode now. I think. I might be wrong. Um, I'm very forgetful. But yeah, so in today's episode, Kimberly and me are joined with Kelsey, and they are here to talk about the chronic illness and advocacy journey, really. And it all links in. So it's going to be really, really fun to hear about that today. Because I think every episode is a bit different, which is really good about the series that we have one episode about someone else, another episode about someone else. So it all links in, but it's all very different at the same time. But Kimberly, hello, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me back. My name's Kimberly. I am the creator of Self Love Sister on Instagram and also the host of Self Love Corner on YouTube. I'm super excited for you, Kelsey, to talk about your story and your journey. And thank you, Mason, for having me.
Yeah. Over to you, Kelsey.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to actually get to share. I have been on the patient advocacy side of things, let's see, like 3 years now. Everything kind of started for me around September 2021. And that's when like chronic migraine set in, and I kind of went through a whole plethora of searches through that. And my advocacy journey also started from there. I feel like that tends to happen, chronic illness hits, and suddenly you're kind of wrapped up in that whole world.
Yeah. So with your journey, because like you do lots of work around it, when did it start? Like like I guess maybe speak about the chronic illnesses that you have.
I kind of started everything at the same time. So, um, I started getting migraine attacks when I was 16, but they were like episodic, so they didn't really impact my life too much. And then during the pandemic is when they started getting really bad. They went from, 2 to 3 a month to like more than 15 and then to daily. And I've had daily attacks since then. And I felt like really alone in that. I felt like I didn't know anyone else around me that had like migraine attacks that disabling. I knew random people who had migraine attacks, but like maybe a few a month, but never like to that degree. So I felt pretty alone in that, and I turned to social media. And around September 2021 is when I was like started my account to look for people who seem like me or were other like migraine advocates to learn more about it and, you know, find my people.
Yeah. Yes, it's yeah.
How old are you now, Kelsey?
I'm 27.
Wow, so you've been living with this condition for a while. Has it like does it stop you from doing something? Like do you have to take a break when the migraines come or how is it? Because I've had people in my life that have had migraines and they're so debilitating, like they have to sit down, stay away from people and that's it. So how is it for you?
I think initially when I was on like the beginner meds, like for step therapy, um, they were not very helpful. So I was basically in bed all the time. I gained a lot of weight that year. I was just like really immobile because I didn't know what to do. Like nothing was helping. Um, and eventually I've gotten better with like meds that help me function. I still get daily attacks, but I'm a little bit better, and so that like I can fairly live my life without it complicating it too much. Like I'm still like always in pain, but I'm not like closing the curtains, like cold compress, like in a dark room all the time anymore. Um, so it's gotten better. I mean, I'm still working with my doctors, of course, to find like the perfect mix of meds. I feel like that's always the trick with chronic illness. What what's the perfect concoction and the right dosages that'll work? But thankfully it has gotten better.
That it's good that
So
it
good to
gets better.
hear.
Yeah, it's good because maybe you find with like the migraine attacks that maybe one day is a bit worse than another day, and maybe you might have better days. Um,
Yeah, I usually have, I'm trying to think, like one or two a week that are like worse than the rest that usually like put me out. So it's a lot better where I can kind of work from that. I don't, before, I wouldn't be able to work or I would have to call out a lot or even like take leaves. So it's gotten better.
yeah. Like, what does the like? I know it can be hard to explain what pain feels like, but like, what does the pain like with your migraine attacks feel like? Like, what's a really bad? What like if you could explain like what it feels like a little bit?
Yeah. Uh, so for me, so I have specifically chronic migraine with aura. Um, I had my migraine attacks actually changed besides like the quantity, they also changed after I got COVID. So I'll kind of describe both. Um, so I usually get tinnitus, so like the ringing in the ear first. Um, Sometimes I'll get like a spotted vision. What is it? The new thing I got after COVID was I get like tremors, like right-sided body tremors. So like usually my right side's a bit weak. I'll like try to pick up a cup and like I can, but it feels a lot heavier than it should. Um, and then the tremors, like I pretty much like shake my right arm a lot and I can kind of control it, but it's not like full control over it and like can be a little bit dangerous depending on what I'm doing. So like not ideal for driving. Um, and then that usually lasts about 20 minutes or so, and then I'll get the throbbing pain on like right side or left side of my head. It varies. Sometimes it'll switch sides during the attack. Um, and it's just like a pounding sensation, kind of like it reminds me if you like exercise, like that, like blood pressure, like thumping a lot, except there's more like pain involved.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
So when did you start getting into advocacy? Like,
So that started, what is it? I got really involved because there was this person that on like this was back when Twitter wasn't like gross like it is now. They reached they put out like a message on Twitter that they were looking for migraine patients and they were BIPOC. So I like messaged them back just saying like, hey, I am, you know, fit those categories. Like, what's going on? Like, what do you need me for? And it turned out to be this annual event called Headache on the Hill, where we, it every year it changes what their priorities are, but we'll advocate for legislation that like benefits headache disorder patients or increase funding for headache disorder patients, similar to that stuff every year. So it ended up being trying to diversify that event more, and they were essentially recruited me and like kind of gave me the like strings to like actually know how to do it because I've never done that before. I've like reached out to um my like representatives, but not in that way. Like I've like written a letter, not like actually talked to their staff or anything. So it was a little bit intimidating, but that kind of really threw me into the journey. And then also creating content on Instagram as well, which all started around 2021 and into 2022. So like towards the end of that.
yeah,
oh, I commend you so much for, being open about your sickness and finding your community because I know that can be very intimidating.
I agree with Kimberly as well. It is very hard to be open about anything, if it's a chronic illness, if it's a journey. like I found like your chronic illness is quite rare. I know everyone is rare, but yours a bit more rare because it's about a certain thing. And other chronic illnesses have different things in them, don't they? Like loads of different things. But with yours it's a bit different because it's around something that maybe people experience, but not as much when you have just that one thing. And then it does impact other things as well, like you've mentioned, like your ears and you moving around, having a cup, and yeah, and eyes and whiteness. So it's a very interesting one to actually speak about because I've never actually spoken about it with someone before. Um, so it's very interesting actually.
Is it when I was trying to find like I guess what's going on with me, and I was uh initially entrapped in the whole like root cause of it, not realizing it's like a genetic complex neurological disorder. Um, when I was kind of wrapped up in that at the beginning, I ended up finding like other health issues along the way. So it's not the only one I have, but it is the one that impacts my life the most. Um, and I mean, I guess I ended up it ended up all working out. I feel like even though I obviously chronic illness is not fun and chronic pain is not fun, it was kind of amazing of the amount of people I've met that I relate to and just like really found a community there that I feel like people that understand me to a level that I didn't feel as understood before. I felt like I found a place where I belong, if that makes sense.
That's the thing with like Instagram. When you focus on like your community, we can be so like loving and supportive. And I feel like you can find a group of people that like understand you, even though you don't have necessarily the same illnesses, we can be supportive along that way. So I love the community.
With the community, there's so many different ones on Instagram. You just put in the search bar what community you want to be involved in, and then you'll see posts from people and other things on there. I think Instagram is one of the best apps for that. Um, Others are a bit more like Facebook, a bit more private. If you go in groups, maybe. Um, each platform has a different ways about it. And I think Instagram, without Instagram, we probably wouldn't be speaking today, actually. So it's good. It's good that you have that, and you will feel probably all of us when we found out we had a chronic illness. I know we've all got different ones, but which is actually pretty cool. Well, it's not cool to have it, but it's cool that we got different ones. Um, but it's cool that like everyone in the community can just join each other, even if they have a different one. I think it's it's really really fun, and we probably all felt alone as well before we knew properly what our chronic illnesses was.
To both of you, I think it took me 8 years to actually get a diagnosis. So I didn't know I had migraine attacks when I was 16 or for the 8 years past that. It wasn't until I had a roommate that was like, it's not normal not to function with a headache that I was like, really? Like, because, I didn't realize that. And I had people around me that like didn't function with their headaches too, not realizing like, oh, there's more to this. And we just never looked into it and never had a doctor or anyone else question it. Like, this is the normal. Um, did it take both of you a long time as well to get a diagnosis?
So for me, I was diagnosed with arthritis at the age of 8. 4 years later, when I started having the flares, I was correctly diagnosed with scleroderma and Raynaud's. So I was on the wrong medication for 4 years, and I was so young, I didn't know how to advocate for myself. And so, whatever the doctors told me, that was it. I didn't even question it. So yeah, and that's the most thing with like autoimmune chronic illnesses. We get misdiagnosed a lot. And so I that's why I believe it's so important to advocate for yourself because you know what you're living with.
Yeah. For me, I was diagnosed with Crohn's when I was 16, um, a little while ago now, and it took me it didn't take me a long time. It took around a few months, 3 to 6 months to get the diagnosis, and I wasn't in pain the whole entire time. Towards the end, I was. So I was diagnosed in October of 2017, and uh, I think maybe I got it when I was younger. It just got worse as I got older. Um, because it's, I don't know. It's annoying that you don't know why you get these things. Well, we all don't know why. There's no reason for it. We just get it. So it's annoying that part of things, and then you make your own theories up. I think I got it because of that, and then yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, it didn't take a long time, but it did take a lot of pushing to get appointments, I'd say.
Yeah, I imagine it'd be different too, because correct me if I'm wrong, Kimberly, but they just because the fact that we're in the US is a little bit different since um we don't have to I guess push for appointments. We just have like a bit of a waiting time. And it also depends on your insurance and like the area you're located on whether or not you find a decent provider or someone who will actually listen to you. I imagine it was really hard um, when you're a child trying to, I mean, I guess your parents are supposed to be your best advocates at that point. Um, luckily I was a bit older, so I was able to it took me a little bit to get comfortable with speaking up for myself. I feel like that's a big thing. Like, you don't, I don't feel like I still get like intimidated by new doctors. Like, I feel like there's always a little bit of hesitance when I go into it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was hard, especially being diagnosed with arthritis at the time. I didn't have any flare-ups. And so it was just like my fingers were like swollen, I guess. So it did look like arthritis, but it was super painful when I would go in with the doctor. And I thought that's okay. Like that's just part of it. But, 4 years later, until I started getting older, and I was like, this is not right. And I started talking to my mom because she didn't know exactly what I felt. We were doing tests and random stuff just because, we trusted the doctors. And sometimes, and now that I'm at the point where I'm older and I'm like, hey, this doesn't seem right. Or, if you get like a lot of side effects or something that you probably shouldn't, like I can easily go to my doctor, but it does take a while, especially for my scleroderma doctor. They threw me in at first with just like the rheumatologist, but I wanted someone who specialized in scleroderma because you have to get that specialist. And I will say that took a few months. And sadly, with most of our conditions, we don't have a few months. Like we're struggling with pain and stuff, and especially also like you said with insurance, finding the right insurance, finding the right doctor, like it's tricky. And I love how you said that you had to go through step therapy because a lot of the times like my doctors will recommend a medication and my insurance would be like, no, just take the other one, and it's like, no, I need this one. So I completely understand.
Yeah, yeah, there's so many different barriers around getting diagnosis in different parts of the world. Like over here, of course, where I am, there's it's insured already. That's the difference. Like like the medication I take at the moment, it's got a well, I could be on it from the rest of my life if I wanted to. But I don't want that. I don't. I mean, I don't think any of us want that. But if we manage it, and we get in a way where we don't have to do that because it depends. Everyone's different. To say me and you are on the same medication, it don't mean we both experience it the same or we both have the same dosage. And sometimes people who even have the same condition as you may not understand your condition. They might say they do, but it's good. It's good that they have the same condition as you, that they can relate in that way. But in the way to we're on the same medication, they may just say, "Oh, if it's working all right for me, you can go out and do your business, do whatever you want, get on with your life." But it's not always the same. It's not always the same, and it's very hard. And I think sometimes you do find some people like that can judge you for that. But this is why it's hard, isn't it? It's hard when we take all these medications and um we have to like take pauses for a while sometimes, and sometimes we just don't know what's going to happen, do we? So doing things like this, raising awareness, setting up advocacy pages, setting up podcasts, they help. And I guess it's something for us to do.
I don't mind sharing my story too, because never know who's gonna hear it and who might actually benefit from it. Um, at least like in my culture. So I'm Chinese and Taiwanese, and first generation, like my parents are immigrants, and like it is like really taboo to talk about like chronic illness. Like they're not about that. They're kind of like, why are you bringing attention to yourself? Why are you like, you know, the culture is very much like be productive and like be one as a society. Like everyone is just like contributing as a society. So like you not being able to makes us look bad kind of thing. My parents have gotten like better and stuff with me, but like the beginnings of it was always a struggle because they like didn't fully understand why I want to talk about it, why I'm doing what I'm doing, why it benefits people. And I'm hoping like just by sharing my story, it helps other people like me or even not like me just figure out their own journey because we don't get all the tools that we need to like survive, honestly. So, a podcast, someone randomly stumbling across a podcast can make a huge difference. You never know.
I had the same experience. My parents are Mexican and I'm Mexican American. But it was kind of opposite because when I first got diagnosed with this chronic condition, it's so rare to begin with. My mom was actually the one that wanted to talk about it and get more information. I was actually the one that was more shy about it. I didn't want to seem like an outcast. Until that was when I was like younger, when I was recently diagnosed, until I started sharing exactly what I had at 21. So I had a stroke. I had two strokes, and then all my family members were like, "What's going on?" And then I was openly and I felt comfortable talking about it. But before then, it was like a really rare thing. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and my mom felt really isolated because she was the one that wanted answers, and I would get so upset by her talking about it. And needless to say, like, I mean, now me and her are like both on the same page, but it was kind of a struggle for me, especially being a teenager growing up and.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it, to explain, especially to explain to people that your parents and maybe feel like that they don't understand you still, even if you're explaining. I think for anyone, isn't it? It's like no one's gonna know what it feels like because they haven't got it. And they can be there for you and be there for you, go to appointments with you, but they're still, a bit deep down, they're not gonna know what it's like. They're not gonna feel that pain. And there's so many things in life that we can get pain with. Like, there's so many different things. Like, you can fall down the stairs or do stuff like that. But things like abdominal pain or pain in our like joints, like I got arthritis, Kimberly. So there's so many different ways that we can experience pain in life, but just the ones that people don't see is why I wish we had this kind of, the X-ray to show them what it's like. We could just walk down the street and you can see all the redness in our bodies. Um, and then we'll see what people think. But I still think that everyone won't be friendly about it. There'll still be people out there who'll be like, what I don't see anything wrong. Um, but I think, especially at the start of your guys' journeys, explaining uh, feelings to like parents can be hard because it's sometimes you maybe feel like you're going in circles. So
So for me personally, like I love to smile. And so people are like, "How are you?" And I just go with the default answer, and it's like, "I'm all right." But like deep down, like my body's burning. I have really bad headaches. I feel awful. But because of the way I look and I have a very cheerful vibe to me, most people don't. They're like, "You cannot be in that much pain." And I get it. I don't look miserable. But sometimes when I'm more quiet, people can tell that like I'm acting different. But I mean, I'm in pain 24/7. It's just some days are better than others, as with most chronic illnesses. But I mean, I personally choose just to be happy all the time because you never know when it can be like your last day. And I don't want people to remember me as like the really depressed girl. Like I think like being kind and cheerful, like you never know, maybe someone else is going through something way worse. And if a smile can help, you know?
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I try to be more positive just because there are those like worst days that I'm quieter, that I don't really want to talk to anyone because I'm in like that much more pain those days. I don't necessarily always have a smiling face. I actually have more of like a resting um bee face. Um, Um, so it's a little bit harder there, but I feel like I also got used to saying like I'm good because I don't want to say, sometimes I don't want to talk about it. Sometimes, you bring it up and then you just get like unsolicited advice and like that's never fun. Or they start giving you like providers that they know and stuff, like, or book recommendations. It's always a little weird when people don't understand it or think that you don't already know about whatever they're about to bring up because you're like have researched this disease, completely almost, because it's your life and you want to find anything that'll help you feel better. Um, So I've gotten used to just saying I'm good because I don't want that to happen. Sometimes I'll probably be more honest with people I'm really close to because they know realistically, like, I'm never really good. Uh, yeah.
yeah.
Mason and Kelsey, I have a question for y'all. What is the worst advice someone had given you that was unsolicited? Like I'm curious. Like for me personally, I've gotten you should drink more water. Like it was just out of the blue. Like I'm like and at that point instead of like arguing, I just say, "Yeah, I'll drink more water," but it's like it's way past that.
Yeah. It would be what someone said. Um, don't worry. No, this is what someone said to me. Do what you do in your life is um your choice. But quite judgmental advice, I think. But what you do is your fault, and what happens in your life happens, something like that, which I don't think is very good.
Nope, I think I've heard like similar advice before, just like blaming it entirely on you when you're like, this is not, I didn't cause this, I don't want this. I don't think anyone would ask to be in pain all the time. Um, I've gotten so much unsolicited advice. Um, what is it? I think the worst one I've personally gotten is probably like it was this person that kept bringing it up was the part. It was like, have you tried magnesium, which is like very common supplement that you take with migraine? Um, but like they kept bringing it up. Like they would give me like book recommendations, and like it was like someone I used to work with, and I was just like, I please stop. Like I know about this already, and like it was just like annoying to have to like deal with that like every couple days or so, because I've heard that advice over and over again already. Trust me, I know about magnesium. Um, I think the worst one though I've heard from other people is the suggestion to get like pregnant and that'll solve it. And I was like, you want someone to have an actual like real life baby to solve this? As if it will solve the problem, because that's not actually like a fix all. It just changes your hormone levels. Um, so yeah, I feel like there's plenty of bad advice that goes around out there.
Yeah, there's so much advice that people. I just feel like people just say things for the sake of it, and they don't think, and they probably still do think, but they don't think right. Do they? They think wrong. Um, and I think in their minds, with the things that we just said, they actually believe that. They believe that's good advice. Um, and some people don't see the wrong in it, and which is crazy, really. Um, because like, there's so much good advice that we could have. But people just don't know sometimes, and they don't think. Um, like people might say, you don't look like you have the chronic illness that you have, or stuff like that. Um, and whenever people about any illness or anything, I mean, what are we supposed to look like? Is there a certain way we're supposed to be shaped, or is there a certain way we're supposed to look? It's quite interesting that is when people say that.
So, Mason, I kind of have to disagree with you a little bit because I know like some of my family members did give me unsolicited advice, but because they generally like they just cared for me. So I think it's like the tone and way people say it. Like if you just have a stranger tell you, you're too young to be sick, whatever,
Mm,
like I take that the wrong way. But if it comes from like a family member and they really care about me, I mean, I could tell when like they've Googled my condition and they just do like, the one step and I'm just like, well,
mm,
at least I take it as like at least they researched it, like they're trying to help, but it just depends on how they tell you, I
yeah,
feel.
yeah. It depends how they speak and the tone. Like if it's a family member, you can probably get like if they're gonna understand. Like I think anyone at the start not gonna understand because we didn't understand at the start. But if some like stranger comes up to you and starts saying stuff, you kind of feel like maybe it's not the best for them to say that. But I think it's in a way it's good people say this stuff. Not good in a bad way, but good that they get educated now. They know they're wrong. But if they feel think they're right when we're telling them wrong, that's when it's bad. But if they want to get educated about it, we can talk to them. But at the same time, if we're doing it all the time, it does get tiring, which is why we have social media.
Yes. Um, so for me, I had to have a handicap sticker because in like the cold, my body just like freezes and stuff. And I'm wearing a mask and I'm wearing my gloves and I'm wearing like a long jacket. So I'm like all covered up. I will get the meanest stares, especially from like older people, or if I have to use like a wheelchair that they have in the store. Like the old people would be like, or they'll say like, "Oh, you're so young," but and then that's it. I'm like, "Oh my God." Like instead of arguing with them, I just learned to keep my mouth shut because I can kind of tell like who's willing to be open-minded about something and then who's just like really stubborn and doesn't want to hear anything. So I've had both experiences.
Yeah. I Someone said to me before that because of your chronic illnesses, it's a seek for attention and it's makes you lazy and it's just an excuse to get other people to do stuff for you. Um, and that was said to me quite recently. And what do you guys think about that? Someone saying that.
I think it's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like I've heard similar things, not exactly those words. Um, but it's also like I'm an introvert. Like, I don't want the extra attention. I feel like I'm doing this for a different reason than they think. Like, I'm okay with not having people stare at me, and I'm okay with not, you know, talking on panels and stuff like that. Like, I'd rather like be alone or just hanging out with my friends, like living a fairly normal life, than having to deal with chronic pain all the time. I think it's pretty ignorant for people to say that. I feel like they're definitely not open-minded people or people who are even like empathetic in that way because it just sounds like they're kind of just stuck in their ways. It's unfortunate that we come across people like that, and I feel like I end up just having to rely on my actual support system when it comes to that because, they understand you a bit better, or like go to my online friends or something, someone who understands it, or like just, need a venting session.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry you had to hear that, Mason. Um, I, for one, kind of understand you, like hearing those words, especially when I was younger, like a teenager, and most of my friends would just call me like lazy because I didn't want to go out Saturday night. But like, you don't understand. I love being at home with my dogs. But just hearing certain words used to make me feel like a failure. Now I've kind of changed my mindset and I'm like, well, they must have something going on in their lives to talk to a stranger that way because I feel like no one should have to hear any type of words or whatever you're going through. Like it's just not right. But that's why I love advocating and stuff. I want to show people that, I mean, everyone has a different perspective on how they feel and not every sickness is the same. So I think that's another reason why I love advocating.
yeah, I agree. I do. Like, as well, I've heard remarks about people relating other things and saying, I know someone else that's worse than the condition that you have. And I never relate any condition with another condition. I just say that everyone has their own journey. And to actually say to me that that there's like, in my mind, I think, like, who do people think they are when they say that? Because they don't know your experience, and I don't like you guys don't. We don't do it for attention. We just do it because it's something that we get to do, and it's kind of the good thing. It's a good thing to come out of having a chronic illness because a lot of it it's doom and gloom at the start, and then we may want to do the only attention I see is making new friends. That's the only attention I see to it. Other than that, though, you don't do attention. Say, look at me. I've got, like me, I've got Crohn's. Like, it's not something that we want to be proud of. I'm sure we don't like having these things. We don't go about spouting out, look at me, I got this, look at, you're missing out, but which you're not. But yeah, it's crazy some people's minds are like that. But, um, like you, Kimberly, if that was younger me, I'd be probably really sad and really affected by it. But now you just feel like they're not worth your time.
Yeah, and it takes a while to build that up too. Like I understand at the beginning you're pretty vulnerable. You're, you know, new to your disease. You're trying to learn how to treat it yourself. Um, so hearing that at the beginning is hard. And even now, like sometimes you'll have your off day. It's not fun to hear. Um, but we do what we do to help other people. That's what I advocate for. Like I'm here because I mean, it took me 8 years to get a diagnosis. I don't want anyone else to have to wait that long or longer. If like sharing my story or spreading awareness will make a difference, like, some random Instagram post I made gets, shown on someone else's timeline and they're not, familiar with it, but it helps them, you know, figure out what's going on with them or like that'll help them get a diagnosis, then that's great. I'm here for that.
Kelsey, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to get a diagnosis for migraines? Because I know migraines, it's like it's on like a scale, some people don't have it mild versus some people have it like really bold and debilitating. So what are three like top advice that you would tell someone
I
that wants
think
to
the
get a diagnosis?
first thing I would say is look into headache specialists near you. American Migraine Foundation has a great like provider directory on their site that you can research to find providers on there. I believe in the UK it's Migraine Trust probably has one. They headache specialists are recognize any headache disorder, so if it's similar to migraine or if it is migraine, they can help with the diagnosis. Trying to think of like two or three other things. Uh, let's say there's not that many headache specialists. Like I feel it, there's like around 40 million people with migraine in the US. And then there's I believe under 800 headache specialists in the US. So there's not enough headache specialists to diagnose. Your next best would be a neurologist. Um, I've heard both good things and bad things for regular neurologists, but for the most part, they should be okay to diagnose like headache disorders. They're just not as familiar with it. And then last but if no neurologist nearby is a primary care provider.
Yeah. That's really good
Okay.
advice.
Mhm.
That is really good advice. And Kelsey, for anyone listening, if they want to maybe contact you, find you, um, do you have any details like maybe Instagram or anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, if you'd like to contact me in any way, I'm on Instagram under Kelsey's Migraine. And then I have a website also, Kelsey's Migraine, and it's Kelsey Kelsey. I know spellings exist. Um, and I think that's it.
Okay.
It's early for me. Well, hopefully that's it.
That's awesome. You've done really well, and it's been a really good. It's really been really nice to talk to you today, Kelsey. Been really fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Thank you for sharing your story and walking us through the journey. And I'm sorry that some people are not understanding, but I'm grateful that you are part of this wonderful community because, as always, we're very supportive.
Yeah. It's you find the people that aren't part of the community, the ones that are being horrible. So don't worry about them. Um. But yeah, Kimberly, is there anything else that you want to add before we finish?
No, as always, like if you want to keep up with my journey and send me messages, I'm at strong_self-love on Instagram, and I have the Self Love Corner YouTube channel, which I do vlogs. So follow me on there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, to anyone today, anyone listening today, any watching today, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode, of The Vulnerable. And we will see you in the next one. We've got a nice little lineup lined up now. I know at the start of the series we were a bit, I think me and Kim were a bit lost with guests, but now we've picked it up really, and we've got a few, at least like three or four more guests lined up. Um, over the next few weeks. So it's going to be really cool. But yeah, thanks to Kelsey for coming on for sharing a really inspirational journey because I've never done an episode like that before on the podcast. So it's the first one that we specifically talked about migraines. And actually, it's really good to educate people because that is actually a chronic illness. It's not just a headache. There's much more into that than just having a little headache, which is probably the stigma around that. But today, we're breaking that stigma with Kelsey coming on, sharing their journey. But yeah, thank you. Have a nice rest of your day, everyone, and thanks for all coming on today.
Thank you.